Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Connecting the Dots. Joining me on this episode is Katie Murphy, the head of social media at Early Years Resources. Early Years Resources produces high quality and innovative educational resources for preschool, nursery, primary school and childminders. Very nice. Katie is here today to talk about the power of the meme. And trust me when I say that it's more powerful than you or I could ever imagine. Katie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's good to have you on. Okay, so can you start by giving the viewers an insight into your journey and how you ended up becoming the social media maestro you are today? See how I thought I had mastermind written down on the notes, but I thought maestro sounded more impressive. So, what's your journey been like?
I've heard it all. I've heard wizard, guru, mermaid. Mermaid is yeah. So yeah, I never really meant to get into social media. I don't think a lot of us do. I did a history degree at Lancaster, we found out that we went to the same unis.
Yeah,
that's what a small world. And then I went on to do archaeological conservation at Durham. So very far removed from anything digital at all, very old stuff. And then I had a year in industry in Denmark, and a certain pandemic happened. You may not have heard of it. So I found that I had to pivot really quick, because what happened was all museums just shut down. So I couldn't get a job in a museum, or if there were museums open, it was really competitive to get into them. So I had to pivot really fast, and I started volunteering with this company called Key Culture, who are amazing. And they do, they're a nonprofit based in the Netherlands, but they're international. And their whole thing is that they provide sustainable solutions for cultural institutions. So yeah, I started volunteering with them as a social media exec, and thought, yeah, I can scroll through Instagram. Easy. Quickly found out it wasn't just that. But I did find that I really loved it. And so because I'm a very competitive person, I felt like I had to be really, really good at this. If I was going to do it, I had to be really, really good at it. So I took about 1 million HubSpot courses, Google Digital Coach, everything under the sun, just to improve my skills, and eventually ended up in the job with Early Years Resources in 2021, I think. So I've been there for 2.5 years, initially a social media exec, and now I'm head of social media.
I mean, Denmark, Holland, like what are you doing going to those places? My first full-time job was in Bolton. Like Denmark and Holland, that's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, well, it's a big world. I wasn't just going to stick in Yorkshire.
Well, so I mean, this wasn't one of my questions, but I'm just thinking then, as you're saying all of that, from going to those different places around the world, I mean, what did you learn? Because obviously you would have seen a lot and probably would have experienced a lot. Like if you look back on that time and, especially in the early years of your career, what do you think that you learned about yourself the most?
I think the biggest thing was probably confidence, because in high school, I wouldn't recognize myself now. If high school me could see me now, she'd be impressed. Like I was so shy. Like I used to have today the rain, but I used to have my hair over my face. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I was so scared of just like human interaction. And like I do get anxious now, but it's totally different. So being able to go to these countries and just enter like an entirely new place, completely out of my comfort zone, it brought so much confidence to me. And I feel like that is such a core skill for social media managers and just a lot of jobs out there, I think.
Yeah. Oh, it will be. And do you know what? It's funny you say that, because the people who I speak to most often who talk about having anxiety are the most confident speakers, and like they deserve such credit for that, because I can't imagine it's easy for you at times. And like, the way that, I've spoken to you before this, obviously, and sort of how articulate you are, and the things you say, the way you say it, you don't seem anxious at all. So maybe that's my lack of like knowledge about anxiety, but it's always the people who say that are the most, from the outside, the most confident and like in a good way. So yeah, obviously you've done really well to break down those barriers. So that's really cool. What have you learned then about social media marketing that you didn't know before you entered the industry?
Yeah, so like I say, I came into the industry thinking that social media was just going to be so easy. I didn't even think it was a job. I knew about marketing because obviously Lancaster has the business management school. So I knew about marketing. I didn't know what it was. I knew about advertising. I didn't realize that social media was such a massive industry, and it's only getting bigger. And then when I did enter it, I thought that it was just going to be posting a few things here and there. I didn't know about all the analytics that go on in the background, all the maths that's involved. I've got spreadsheets for days. That's one of my favorite bits, actually. But I didn't realize how many formulas, how many pivot tables I would need. And it's a lot more work than people realize it is. It's not just like scrolling Instagram and having a nice time. It is a lot of effort, a lot of work, both day to day in the actual job, but it does take like a mental toll on people. Going back to like the anxiety thing as well. I think there's probably some sort of correlation between social media managers and having anxiety. Because you are on the internet constantly. So,
well, I found that with my own LinkedIn, and obviously I don't. Well, do I run my LinkedIn for work? I suppose in theory I do, because I'm promoting my business and promoting myself. But I guess for me, I'm not like, unless I'm judging myself, I'm not accountable to anyone for the metrics. Whereas I can imagine that when you're accountable to somebody, like in your capacity, like, so for example, I put a post out about 2 or 3 weeks ago, which said, imagine if the copywriter who came up with the L'Oreal slogan, "Because you're worth it," was paid by the word or hour. And that got about 520 likes, I think. And then I put one out about 2 years of my business, which I was really proud of, was really candid about. And that got about 1/10 of the number of likes. I put one up today about me presenting, that got 10. And it gets me down, to be honest. Sometimes it can get me, not like, I wouldn't say down, because I try not to attach too much importance to it, but I do kind of think, what is going on? Like, how can you predict what's going to do well and what's not? And I can imagine that when that's your job day in, day out, that must get to you, because you're human, and it would do.
Yeah, it is a bit. I would say along those lines, it really depends on what your goal is. So if your goal is to get more reach, then obviously you want those kind of likes and comments. But if your comment then is to get, or if your goal is to get leads or any other form, then it's not necessarily the likes or the reach. Like, so it comes and goes. Never try and attach too much serotonin to.
No, it's really refreshing that you say that, because to people like me from the outside who don't work in your field, for you to say that there are so many different metrics, like I'll look at it and go, oh, that didn't get that many likes. But you know what? Some of the posts that I put out that get 12 likes or so, they'll get a lot of leads. Or not a lot, but they'll get more leads than one that gets 500. So it just goes to show that they aren't everything. Likes and comments matter, but they're not cash. As a guy I used to work with called Cole Levine, who might be watching this, once said, and it is so true. So I'm glad that you said that. So before we dive into the main topic, I just have a quick fire final few questions. This is essentially one really long question broken into 3 parts. So what are some preconceived ideas around social media marketing that you'd like to dispel on this podcast? Maybe you just dispelled one there, but what are some ideas you'd like to dispel? What are some of the worst comments you've received in the past in relation to your job? And do your friends and family fully understand what you do yet?
Yeah, so I think the main myth, and I think probably most social media managers would love to dispel this, is that it's an easy job. And like, I mean, I've already touched on it a little bit, but one comment that I had last year was about they thought that because they could see me doing all the fun stuff, and they just see like surface level stuff, they thought that I didn't take my job seriously and I didn't want to do the serious things like the I guess paid ads, which I mean I don't like paid. I'm not sure. Some paid is for some people, it's not for me. I'm more of an organic kind of person. But what they didn't realize is that in order to be able to do all that fun stuff, I had to do research. I had to have all my spreadsheets. I had to have all that data backing it up. So there's a lot of work that goes into making my job look easy, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that annoyed me. My friends and family, my parents are getting better. It's only been 3 years. But initially when I started out, they thought that it would just look like a really fun little job. Didn't fully understand what it was. Thought it was maybe like advertising, something like that. And now they get it a little bit more. They're not really on social media, to be fair. But my mum comments sometimes like, "Oh, this looks like work."
In a good way or in a sarcastic way?
Yeah, I think it's because, I mean, she was a nurse for like 40 years. So I guess different fields, different levels of stress a little bit. But yeah, and then my friends as well, if I'm trying to log into Meta Business Suite, they'll see me on Facebook and be like, "What are you doing? Why are you on social media all the time?" I'm doing my job.
Yeah, I briefly did it. So I joined an insurance company about 7 years ago now. And the title was Content and Social Media Executive. I'd done a little bit on social media before when I worked in PR. But I mean, you're just talking about doing some tweets for a white collar business. That was what it was. And it was like that in the insurance company. It was basically just, I've seen this really interesting news story. Can we share it on social media? Ooh, no problem. Yeah, it was just bollocks, really. I would do all the stuff on Twitter. It never did anything for us. Never brought in anything. The paid ads did a bit more, but I wasn't really in charge of that. In fact, I wasn't in charge of it, really. I only did it for the first 6 months, and I was crap at it, to be honest. So, I prefer, I do ghostwriting for LinkedIn now. That's about it. I can't do Instagram, TikTok, none of that stuff. I would never pretend to be any good at that. So that's what people don't realize, isn't it? Because people just think social media is putting out a Facebook update. It's such an art to it. Like, I remember what I did do. The one thing I'm sort of proud of, I guess, is with the insurance company, I set up an Instagram page. Insure for Sport is the handle. I don't know what it looks like now, but we were doing a bit more with it years ago. And I did all the reels for like when we did blog posts, sharing it as a reel. And I felt like a proper like cutting edge millennial / Gen Z person doing that. But even then, I wasn't that happy with the results. I think we got like a few sales from it, but it wasn't many. Whereas obviously you've said before, all the spreadsheets you've got, I never had any of that. The way that you think it's through so strategically, and it is really impressive because, as I say, there will be people out there, rightly or wrongly, and I know it's ignorance, but they'll think, oh, there's not that much science to it, is there? It's just posting as and when you feel like it. Whereas, having delved into the data extensively for the last, how long have you been at Early Years Resources? 3 years now, nearly?
2.5, yeah, nearly 3.
You know what's involved in that job, and I think it's brilliant. I really do.
Thank you.
So, okay, the main topic of conversation to the uninitiated or people who have heard of the term meme but don't fully understand it. And this is a big question, by the way. I feel like I'm asking you a really loaded question here, but what is a meme and where did it originate from?
So what is a meme? So a meme is an idea, a behavior, or it's a style that spreads from person to person within a culture. So as we understand it, it's internet memes for us, or previously it could have been postcards in the Victorian era, I guess, if you want to like really go back. But so it was defined in the 1970s. But yeah, it could date earlier. I think I saw something that it could date even to like the 1800s, which is crazy. But it comes from the term to imitate in ancient Greek, which is really interesting. Essentially, it has 4 main characteristics. So it should be easy to share. It could be easy to change or adapt to like your niche. It should be able to spread quickly, so you have that virality factor. And then it should be a cultural reflection of current affairs, current events. So yeah, that's what a meme is, if you want to get scientific. But overall, it's just a bit fun.
I was thinking as you said that. Do you know those awful cards you get in like Clinton's cards or on Thoughtful, where it's like a really blue joke, but it's a black and white picture and it's got a caption above it? Yeah. Like when you said postcards, then are they the kind of things that you were referring to, or some of the earlier cards? But would they like? I don't know why I'm asking you this. Is if you could go back to 1970 and go, oh yeah, they're selling them back then. But I'm just thinking in my head, like, because they're like physical copies of memes in a way, aren't they? Those old cards, like I remember them from when I was a kid. Like they've been around since the dawn of time, it seems. So, like, would you class them as being akin to a meme in terms of their creative execution and I suppose their essence. You know, you said there it should be easy to understand, said in a couple of lines or a sentence or whatever. Would you say they're kind of similar, or am I not on the right lines there?
No, I think you are. I think that's a really good example of like a non-internet meme, and like the postcards that I was referring to would probably be like, yeah, Victorian postcards, because it was like the first way that people could, without writing letters, people could easily send each other these funny little messages without really having to say much. So no, I think that's a really good example.
I mean, some of the earliest memes I remember seeing, so I'm going way back. Well, there was that one of Willy Wonka where he's like that and he's got the smirk on his face, but some of them are awful now. Like, they're just not funny. But the one that did make me laugh, and I sent this one to you the other day, I don't know how far back this goes, but it's the one when, you know, when you go to take a picture on your phone and you have the camera on you and it says when you accidentally hit the front camera around or whatever, and it's just like, like I look at the top. But I know that obviously what you do is a lot more professional than that. I just
oh, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's unhinged, some of the stuff that we do.
Oh, it's amazing. I think I've. Oh no, we do talk, because I was just checking my notes there to see if we talk about the most successful memes. But we do, the ones that you've done. So we'll come back onto that. What are some examples of popular memes that you admire within the marketing sphere and beyond? And what do you think makes them so effective?
So the most recent examples I can think of are probably the David and Victoria Beckham one. So for anyone who's not aware, I don't know how you wouldn't be aware, but in the David Beckham documentary, I mean, I'm perpetually online, so I have a hyper awareness of what's going on. But in the David Beckham documentary, he was just leaving the room and Victoria is going on about how she was really a working class girl. Her family was very working class. And he comes back around the corner and he's like, tell the truth. And she's insisting that she was working class. And then all of a sudden she says, oh, no, my dad, he did drive a Rolls Royce. And he's like, thank you. Like she'd forgotten that he drove this Rolls Royce. And essentially what happened with that went all over LinkedIn. And like social media managers were using it, marketers in general were just using it as just for their own niche. And then what happened was Uber Eats saw that this virality was happening across the internet and decided to use it for their Super Bowl ad. Very quickly turn around. And essentially they promoted this ad and Victoria's wearing this t-shirt that says, my dad drives a Rolls Royce. And the premise is that they've forgotten what the Super Bowl is. They call it the Hockey Bowl, I think. And they say Jessica Aniston instead of Jennifer Aniston. And then the tagline was, whatever you forget this Super Bowl Sunday, remember Uber Eats. And it was just like brilliant. Because they've taken that cultural phenomenon and used it for advertising, which I think you see more and more. I see it on LinkedIn a lot. I can't remember the company that does it. I feel like it's something maybe like, no, I'm not going to say because I don't actually remember.
Well, do you know what? It probably would have been helpful for you if I'd actually done any research before this podcast about memes that I like. Because I mean, apart from that front camera one, which I know was not massively helpful, but I'll tell you one company that does really well with it. I can't remember if I mentioned this to you before, but Surreal, obviously with the cereal, like the memes they're doing are unbelievable. Like,
they're really funny.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You were good. I think you said before, or you said something to me before the podcast. Did you about the Taylor Swift one? Was that one of the memes, or the Barbie one? Maybe the 2023.
Oh, Barbie. Yeah, that was a cultural phenomenon as well. So again, like 2023 was the year of Barbie, and it's coming back again because I think is it the 60th, maybe 65th anniversary of Mattel.
Oh yeah.
So it's coming back around again. So we're looking forward to another Barbie summer. But essentially, in the lead up to the Barbie movie, they just did everything. And so all brands got involved with this. And it's not necessarily memes, although some really good memes did come out of that movie. It was brilliant. But just these like brand partnerships that happened, like Heinz ketchup, roller skates, Airbnb, all of these different things happened because of this just cultural moment. Incredible.
I know which one it was because I was thinking there was a Taylor Swift one as well, and it was the one where she's like, that was
yeah, that's one we used. Yeah,
that person next to her, and there were people like, I think there were brands, for example, when someone, I'm not saying Surreal would do this, but using Surreal as an example, when someone doesn't buy Surreal cereal or something like that. I mean, you can tell I wouldn't be a great meme writer, wouldn't you, if that was my step there. But it's just basically like, with you, it might be, for example, what is it? When early years resources get a whole new batch of crayons in or something, I don't know. That's pretty good. Exactly. But so okay, well that leads nicely into this question, and hopefully that's not your answer to this question because that's a terrible example. But how do you use memes in your capacity?
So I use memes as often as I possibly can, to be honest, just because they're really fun to make, and like that again, like that you have to be quite clever about it. Like you think sometimes that you just have to be funny, but being funny is really hard actually, because sometimes I think I'm funny and then I'm just like, no. I'll send it to my friends and be like, is this funny? And be like, oh. So I use memes in like every single capacity I possibly can. So I use it on my own LinkedIn, and I try and do it over EYR's socials as well. Yeah. Mostly when it's culturally relevant. So, for example, the Met Gala was recently, a couple of weeks ago, and obviously at the Met Gala they just wear insane things, don't they? So I have it in my calendar for months, like looking forward to this day, because I just know that the meme possibilities are endless. So I took the picture. I took a few images from that, and there's one of this woman, and she's got this black dress, and it just poofs out like really wide, and she's got her hands on her hips like this, and she just looks really quite angry, or just like intense. I think she's concentrating. But I took that, and I think I wrote something like the parachute when it's been left in storage all winter, or something dumb like that, like getting ready for summer. It was really silly, but such like culturally relevant moments, and just thinking about how these things can be related to my niche as a social media manager, and then EYR's niche as an educational resources company. So I use them primarily for reach value. So I know obviously memes can generally reach a lot of people, especially if you've done them at the right time, because people will be talking about this moment anyway. And so it's kind of easy to kind of get in there. So then there's huge brand awareness potential when you use them. And I think we discussed this before, but I've started using more video memes recently. Yeah. With the rise of CapCut and TikTok, there's just so many possibilities. I love it. I use the Gary Barlow meme where it's like, this is my idea of a nice day. And then today, actually, have you seen the new portrait of King Charles, the unveiling? No. It's fine. But there's a video of him unveiling it because it's behind a curtain. It's a big moment. And someone's taken that thing and green screened where the portrait should be. So I've replaced the portrait with a child's drawing and put my child presenting their drawing to me to put on the fridge.
Brilliant. Yeah, really it's brutal, but it's so funny. I love that. Oh my God. Yeah. Wow. I'm amazed that they actually did a good portrait of him, to be honest. When you said that, I was quite surprised.
It depends what you define as good. I mean, it's great.
Sorry, that was just my alarm going off in the middle of the podcast. Why would I turn my phone off before I'm about to record? How professional would that be? Anyway, sorry. You were saying about King Charles's portrait.
Oh well, so it's just the artist, but like essentially they've done the face as like a proper detailed face, and then his body kind of fades a bit into the background. You'll have to see it. It's interesting.
I was thinking of one, and it's gone out of my head now because that alarm's just thrown me off completely. But there was the obviously there was the Sam Smith thing last year when he had, was it last year when he had that costume? There were loads of people did memes after that, didn't they? I remember that. And there was one when you said Met Gala. Now this is a really niche reference. I don't think, did I ever ask you if you're do you watch football, or are you a football fan, or no? Yep. Okay. Basically, there was this guy. I'll try and keep this really succinct and like without boring you. But basically, there's a Liverpool player called Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he went to this fashion show in Milan, and he had this black jacket on, and he was stood like that with the black jacket on. And someone did a meme of him with, do you know Phoenix Nights with Peter Kay, where he's got the leather jacket on? They basically just did like a load of memes around that with like a carousel. It was really cool. So I bet you had to be there anyway. It's very niche example there. Actually, one final one. When you said CapCut, I just remembered. So, you know, when you talked about, you think you're funny, but quite often you realize that you're not, and it's a heartbreaking moment. Trust me, that happens to me all the time, probably more than anybody. So I tried to get onto this CapCut thing last year. Do you remember the one with the boat where it was like nice music in the nighttime of the boat sailing, right?
Yeah.
So I tried TikTok for the business when I first started. It didn't fucking do anything for me. It was a disaster. So, but I did this Grammar Gripes video series. So I used to put one out like 2 or 3 times a week correcting people's grammar. So I tried to do this one of me sat in a boat. It was such a bad idea, right? So basically, the caption was when someone writes your, Y-O-U-R, instead of your apostrophe R-E, and it's just me on the boat going like that and shrugging my shoulders and going, oh, look at that. How terrible is that? They got like 2 likes.
Oh,
so
no.
I just thought, because they said like you can boost your engagement, boost your impressions by trying a CapCut meme, and I tried it and just made a complete mess of it, to be honest. That's anyone over the age of 30 probably isn't meant to be any good at using TikTok, I guess. There's a heartbreaking moment. So whatever you've done, I'm sure I can top it in that sense. What are some of the biggest commercial benefits you've seen from using memes? You know, there are a lot of people out there, particularly people who haven't grown up with memes or aren't used to them being a thing for businesses, who will say to you, you know, what benefit does putting a jokey meme on LinkedIn have to my business? Mm-hmm. So, you know, imagine that I'm some baby boomer called Bob or Malcolm, and I'm sitting here cynical saying to you, you know, like that, with my shirt done up to too tight of a shirt and a suit jacket and a tie on, and I'm saying, what commercial benefits does this have to me? So what would you say to someone in that situation? And I think you've got a good example here as well.
Yeah, I'd be like, well, baby boomer Bob. I think memes are great for brand awareness when they're used in the right place at the right time for the right audience. They're brilliant because you're getting more in front of like the relevant people who will find that stuff funny. There's also like a higher chance of you translating that brand awareness into potentially sales, which is, I mean, a benefit for everyone, and especially for like CEOs or managers who don't necessarily understand the power of actually reaching people as opposed to just sales all the time. I think that's quite powerful. And you have to, I would also always say, like, always back up everything with data, because if you've got the data to back what you're saying, then no one can really argue with that because it's just facts. Brilliant. It's just, and then, so I found that in, we posted a meme on TikTok. So I don't know if I should explain what a Tough Tray is.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So essentially one of our best-selling products is a Tough Tray. And for anyone who doesn't have a toddler or isn't a teacher watching this, a Tough Tray is essentially a big tray, and it's got a lipped edge. So you can just contain all play inside of it. So like messy play. You can have water, whatever, and then just pour it out at the end. And it's kind of a hexagonal shape. And it's really good for group things as well. And essentially EYR kind of came up with the idea of a paper pad, which just slots perfectly into the tray. I want to say we were the first to do it. I don't know.
Go for it. No, who's going to be watching this that's going to dispute it? Let's go with it.
If our competitors are watching, then sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were the first. I think it says EYR own developed or something on the website. Anyway, so I memed that it was a clip from Zoolander, and essentially it's Owen Wilson's just being like, wow, as he does, and Will Ferrell, so literally everyone being like, wow, that's amazing. And then the caption was something like, when you finally found paper that fits in your tough tray or something like that. And it reached so many people. I can't remember I think it's at least 100,000 views on that alone. And so many comments as well saying like, oh my God, where did you get this from? And I had to be like, well, we sell it. But what was really interesting from that was I every week I go through like traffic stats just to see what I can attribute to me. And I was going through traffic stats, had a look at TikTok, and on TikTok we had something silly like, we don't really get a lot of traffic from TikTok because if you can imagine, the link is in your homepage. So people have to go, rather than scrolling, they have to go to your homepage to.
Yeah.
So I don't always expect a lot of traffic from TikTok, but it was something silly for that week, like 5,000 sessions on the website. And then from that, I was able to look at events that had happened and look at purchases. And it turned out that from TikTok alone, 26 people had purchased a Tough Tray paper pad, which was brilliant because I could then attribute that to social and look and be like, look, organic social memes.
Yeah. So if you had to put a number on it, how many hours would you say that took you to put together, to come up with the idea and to post it? Like, how long would you say that took?
Well, to come up with the idea, like, I don't know, like 10 minutes.
I sound again, I'm going to do it again, baby boomer Bob. I sound like I'm grilling you, but this is all in like, because it's a positive thing. I think it's amazing what you've just shared with me. So 10 minutes, right? And I'm not going to ask you wage, don't worry. That's not what I'm about to ask. But how much is a sale of one of those paper pads worth to the company? So what would be like the RRP of one of them?
I think that's something like £15 each.
26 times 15. I've turned my phone off now, so I can't do it. But it's
I don't have my spreadsheet open. I can't.
That is £390.
Yeah, and I didn't spend a penny to make it. So
£390 from 10 minutes work.
Lovely.
You know what I mean? That's just such a good example, isn't it? Of like, you know, the power that is literally the power of the meme and the commercial viability. And as much as I hate that word, it is, isn't it? It's the commercial viability of the meme. 10 minutes work, 390 quid. Now, obviously, yeah, you won't expect to do that all the time, but just from doing something like that on TikTok. Because the interesting thing, I mean, as well, it's even more impressive the fact that you've done it on TikTok, because you get a lot of companies, especially the bigger brands, where you'll know better than me, but you have to get a certain number of followers before you can do the swipe up option. Is that right? Is it 10,000 or something like that you have to have?
Yeah, it's something, I think it was for the link in the bio, you have to have 10,000 followers. It used to be on Instagram that you needed 10,000 followers to be able to add a link, but then they changed that just as we were about to reach 10,000 followers.
Really?
So, yeah. But I mean, now we're on 60,000, so it's all good.
Oh, I love that little segue. That's brilliant, isn't it? Oh, now we've got loads more, so we're fine. But no, you used to be able to like do the thing with your thumb where you'd swipe up, but the fact that you didn't have that on TikTok and still managed to get 26 sales, mad.
Yeah. Because I think about how I use TikTok, and I rarely go, unless it's like some sort of like series of videos. I rarely go to the creator's actual page. I just don't do it. So yeah, I was quite pleased with that one.
I've always said this as a creator of like, so I'm different. Obviously, I do words, but like, you think to yourself, like, imagine someone seeing what you've done, because I don't know about you, like it's very rare. Even if the irony is, I write blog posts for businesses and write web copy for businesses. I can't think of that many businesses where I've gone on their website and had such a positive impression of them that I've gone and bought thousands of pounds worth of stuff, or you know, I've bought something and then thousands of other people have, you know. So we have to remember this. Like when we get down about things like sales or conversions or even pages per session, in my case, not being that high, you have to think, well, people are time poor. Unfortunately, the way the world is at times, they're also cash poor. And you think for them to want to buy 26 26 products from you from seeing one video, like, I don't know about you, I don't think I've ever bought anything from TikTok. Maybe again, that's just showing my age, but I've never done it. So for someone to, again, like, you're probably just thinking move on from this point, but like, do you know what? It's like someone's literally seen the video, got their wallet or on their phone or whatever, taken their credit card out or their debit card out and put their details in, spent 5 minutes doing that because of something you've done. And you think things like that. And it's the same for me when I write a blog post. I did one recently. It took me probably a day to do it. Made about $5,000, so far in assisted and last click conversions. So I'm thinking, that is mad. And yet you'd get loads of CEOs who would look at me, someone who writes words and, all these flowery words and, you do your memes and all these sort of flowery things. They would miss out on those benefits because they didn't entertain it. I think it's a bit mad.
Yeah, I mean, like on that point, I often see people on LinkedIn say things about, because people get down about the likes, like you said earlier. So maybe if they had 10 likes, they might get a bit down about it. But then they say, like, imagine if those 10 people were just like in the room with you and they were just like clapping. You'd feel
I sound really cold saying this, but I don't see that much on LinkedIn that I really like. It's all just stuff that I know about already. So when I get, like, say that L'Oreal one, I didn't even think that was that good. And you've got like 500 odd people who gave it a thumbs up. And obviously you've done stuff before where even you must think sometimes, because listen, we all think this. There's no shame in saying this, where you'll put something together and you'll think, that was shit. Like, what was I doing?
Literally all the time. Again, like I just say the first thing that comes out of my head quite a lot of the time. So I think there was a moment a few weeks ago when Canva was down, and I put something on LinkedIn saying it's the fact that I can't even make a meme about Canva being down because Canva's down. Like I couldn't do it. And so like I was thinking this and I was like, I'm going to type this on LinkedIn. And then someone, like, I think 700 people liked it. SEMrush like commented on mine. And then someone shared it being like, this is how you do LinkedIn. This is how you do social media. And I was like, it's not that serious.
Again, I know we've said this before, but you can spend, like, especially because I think this is especially important to highlight in the context of your role because of the design elements that are involved. So like if I put a LinkedIn post out, don't get me wrong, it still requires a lot of thought, but not the same as what you're doing, especially as we've said, with the kind of the sort of the commercial targets that are on the line, and I get all of that. But like you can spend so long on something and it will get nothing. And you just sit there thinking, I've just spent an hour editing that post. I've put loads of thought into it and no one's liked it. But then I've written something that's taken me 5 minutes and it's gone viral. And it's just, there's no, I guess one of the things is from this podcast to take away for anyone who's not familiar with social media is that there's just no, it's not exact science. There's just no logic to it, is there?
For any social media manager, I think, who says that they're an absolute expert and they know anything about algorithms and everything about how to go viral and how to, like, they're just not telling the truth. Because like there's things that I do, like, yes, we succeed on social media and it's great, but and then I have like a strategy, obviously, and I have like, I know in my head what will work, like how to get our audience to engage with us, but I'll never know if something's going to go viral. Because you can't know. It's like such an unpredictable thing. So for people to say, oh yeah, I can get you this many followers and this many engagements and whatever, and I'm an expert, they're just not telling the truth, because I don't understand social media sometimes.
Yeah, and if you don't, then there's no hope for anyone, is there? Like, I'm curious to know, actually, with the spreadsheets that you said you've got and all that, I'm sure you're dying to see of them at times, but what are some of the things that you'll look at? So in my head, I'm going to answer it for you, which is a really terrible interviewing technique. But I would assume in my own head that it would be things like, obviously seasonality would be a factor. Maybe you look at like margins. I might as well just ask the question. What sort of things do you look for? Is it things like that? Or do you look at a lot of things that aren't that?
I look at loads of things. But I mean, my main KPIs are things like reach, engagement, and traffic. They're like the main things that they want me to be looking out for. Things like margins and things like that. That's not that's not my thing.
No.
That's more like the buying team. So, but yeah, seasonality comes into it, obviously, because we supply to teachers, so we have to take into account things like the summer holidays, bank holidays, training days, all that kind of thing. But yeah, primarily reach, and I do it like week by week as well. I've got graphs on graphs on graphs and color coding. I try and make it as like fun as possible, so that when I look at it, I'm not like, oh.
Yeah, got a lot of time for color coding. I think it's a good thing I'm not part of the social media team at your place, because can you imagine, I'd be going up to people every week saying, what are the stock levels like on these coloring books? And because I don't want to write a post about it unless the stock levels are really high or the margins really high, because it's just like, people just get bored of me, I think. But what advice do you have for other social media marketers, especially people who are quite new to the industry, on how to use memes to their advantage?
I would say that you have to really be obsessed with your audience. Like, you have to obsess with them. Like, you have to get into their head. What would they find funny? Like I said, what are their pain points? How can they relate to what you're saying, like a cultural moment? And someone I think who does this really, really well is Annie Mae Hodge, and she runs Girl Power Marketing. She does such a great job with that, because she obviously is a social media manager herself, and she really understands what social media managers go through and what we find painful, like Meta Business Suite, or someone asking us to make something go viral, or all these different things like, oh, can you be a social media manager for like an hourly rate on like £7 an hour, but can you also be an email manager, and all this different stuff, and there's like job descriptions that are just insane. So, but she really understands, and she really obviously knows her audience. So it's like painfully true, but it's hilarious, because we're just like crying in the comments, like, so true. I would also say, like, write a few different versions of the funny thing, because sometimes the thing that you come out with first, sometimes it is funny. Like, sometimes, again, like, I'll literally write the first thing that comes into my head, and it does end up being funny, apparently. But other times you write something and it's just not funny. So you need to like really maybe not think about it too much, because then that could have the opposite effect, but just maybe draft a few different versions.
I've just another question's come into my head there, and this might be one of the questions where you're thinking like, what is he going on about with this? But like, do you ever do? I suppose, like, I don't know if you'd really do something like this, but do social media marketers ever run surveys asking their audiences what kind of content they'd like to see, but in like a really subtle way that isn't that, just something like, which areas do you feel like you'd want to learn more about? And then you can create a content schedule around that. Is that something that you would advise doing or have ever done yourself?
Yeah, I've done it myself. So as a company, we do surveys for our audience, but they're like big, long things. The type that's like, oh, this will take 5 minutes, and then just like, like half an hour a day. So we do that, but I also occasionally do like a poll on Instagram, like, what do you want to see? More often than not, I mean, like, we all know that like we hate being sold to. Like, I hate it. If like someone is like pushing a product at me, I'm like, no, get away. So it's more like the subtlety of things. So like, if we have a craft video, then we might put a product into that, like the paper pad again. Like, we'll do an activity video. Well, the paper pad will be involved, but we're not necessarily throwing it at people. So yeah, I think surveys are quite good. I don't know if I can speak for all social media managers. I know girls in marketing do a few polls occasionally, or like questions on their Instagram as well. They're quite good for that.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
What was how do you spell the woman's name? Sorry, who you mentioned. Was it Annie Mae?
Yeah, Annie, ANNIE, and then dash MAI.
And then Hodge, just normal spelling, is it HODGE?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So this actually isn't the final question. I have got one. You know what it is. So, but just before we get onto that, where can people connect with you if they want to find out more about what you've said on this podcast, or just ask any questions about what we've discussed?
Yeah, so people can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to get on my personal TikTok, but maybe don't follow me there just yet. And in terms of EYR, we're pretty much at Early Years Resources on everything. We're not on Twitter anymore after the Musk takeover. So,
I'm not saying this to show off, but I've got a Tesla, so I would rather not talk about Elon Musk, especially after watching the plummeting value of it in the last 12 months. But that's another story. So finally, you're a vegan.
I am a vegan.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm saying that as if it's such a big deal. Like, you're a vegan, in case you didn't know. And now I feel like an innately evil person knowing that fact, especially as I've just eaten a chicken stir fry, which is why I was late coming up to the podcast, which you were very patient about, and thank you for that. I don't eat many things that don't include meat, I will be honest. I am trying to have 1 or 2 days a week where I just eat vegetarian meals. But I'm curious to know, just in case anyone watching might want to, save the planet and be more of an ethical human being, what is your favorite vegan meal and why?
Oh, it's such a good question because I love cooking and I love food. But I would say my favorite vegan meal would be, probably I really like it's gyoza soup. It's delicious. So essentially, the gyoza that you get in there's a Korean market in Manchester. So I get the frozen gyozas and then kind of mix some gochujang paste, which is like spicy tomato paste, and tahini, and then chop things like tofu into it. And it's just so warming. It's very wintry, which it's pretty miserable and grey out in Manchester today, but it's probably a good weather for gyoza soup. But it's especially like a winter warmer.
I've just thought of another meme. I don't know if this is the right one. Mm-hmm. Do you know where it's like, and again, it's a football one though, so I don't know why I'm like, it was all going so well. We're just about to end the podcast normally, and then I have to but it's like, there's a guy, it's a black guy in America, and he's putting stuff in the pan, and the pan starts going on fire. He goes, "Oh shit," like that, and it starts have you seen that one?
Yeah.
And then there's when Liverpool signs such and such a person, but you could do that when it's when you add X, Y, and Z product to your shopping basket and see there's also a discount on. There you go.
You know what? That's a really good idea because there's the Drake meme where he's that.
Yeah,
exactly. So I did one where it was he's like, no, because it was Monday, but the point was that we were running a giveaway. So
that's so good. What was it? What was the caption on the right? What did the one on the right say about the? Was it just
it's just something. Yeah, I was like, oh, it's when it's Monday, and then but you realize that we're running our biggest giveaway ever. Something.
They should have done one for me where it's being on time for the podcast and asking proper questions and switching your phone off, turning up late and having your phone on.
Yeah.
And, No, honestly, Katie, it's been superb. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too.
Some great insights, and hopefully people will enjoy this episode, and I'll push it very soon. And it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Katie. Bye. And it's goodbye from Baby Boomer Bob. See you all later.